Hi! There are spoilers in this video for all chapters of Deltarune, and maybe minor spoilers for Undertale. Yeah, there are, actually. If you're okay with that, I'm just gonna proceed, get it, to the video. Okay, so the new Deltarune chapters came out a few months ago by now, and I'm sad to report there was no Jockington in the Dark World, which means the game will never be as good as we all hoped it would be. But besides that blemish in its record, the chapters were on the same or even better level of quality. It also might already make Deltarune my favorite game of all time, but we don't need to talk about that for now. Today we're gonna be talking about the most mysterious character in chapter 2 that finally made their premiere in the new chapters. I'm of course talking about the one and only not Roaring Knight, even though she would definitely fit also into those criteria, but Mike, who is finally revealed in his secret fight that's accessible in chapter 4. Kinda. But I'll get to it in a second. So let's talk about his presence in previous chapters, some interesting facts about the fight, who Mike really is, and how these things tie into it. Let's go! So let me first set the background for why are we even discussing Mike in any sort of way, and why was he seen as such a big deal before his reveal in chapter 4. Mike was first mentioned in any way, shape or form by no other than Spampton G. Spampton, the secret boss of chapter 2, when he was telling Chris about the chapter 3's TV world and his relationship with the boss of the chapter, Tenna, in a dialogue box about friends. This hints at the fact that Mike and Spampton were great friends, and maybe something happened to Mike. Or maybe Spampton is just regretting the fact that he abandoned him and the entire TV world without a word, as we see in the semi-secret Tenna dialogue. Spampton's line,
"Don't trust everything you see on TV, that man's a criminal,"
made fans believe that Mike was gonna be the main boss and the TV guy of chapter 3. Until the incredibly interesting, let's say,
Spampton ass! Yeah!
Spampton Sweepstakes charity action. And it's ARG that took place on the Deltarune website a year after chapter 2 released, which corrected that assumption. On the site, there is a link to deltarune.com/DemuTenna, in which Spampton blames all of his bad luck on Tenna and says that everyone will pay for it. Except Mike, which is hidden in black text on the page. In the second part of the Sweepstakes ARG, which happened in April of 2025, there aren't concrete references to Mike, but there are to the minigames that were featured in the final game in the Mike room, which I'll get to later. So before the release of the new chapters, people came to the conclusion that Mike would most likely be related to the device_friend sprite seen right before the most threatening thing in chapter 2, the teacup ride.
What the fuck?
Also, there were a lot of theories about Mike being the chapter's secret boss. And none of those things really came to fruition. When we finally quote-unquote meet the guy, he's seemingly just the producer of Tenna's show, but we never actually see him in the entirety of the chapter. But in chapter 4, Mike himself is located in the TV building that appears in the castle town, where you can also play select songs that were turned into a rhythm game. Oh, that sounds like fun. Anyways, the Mike room is locked with a 4-digit code, which is revealed officially in a booklet next to the door in the New Game Plus portion of the chapter. But we have no time for that, and you can just solve the code by typing the word Mike on your phone's dialing number keypad, which is not really the most obvious thing in the big year of apocalypse that is 2025. When you enter the room, there's, huh? Another room? In which there are giant cat statues. That scare a mouse enemy. After petting the statue, the mouse immediately repays you and becomes controllable with your mouse or joystick, if you have the console versions. This whole section was probably implemented for one reason: the fact that Chapter 3 and 4 are Nintendo approved Switch 2 launch titles. And one of the main gimmicks of the console is that
each Joy-Con 2 controller can be used as a mouse.
And in Deltarune, on Switch 2, you can use both of your controllers as mice, which would be an incredibly interesting thing to experience on the console. If I had one! Thankfully, this room is mostly the same in both versions, so I don't really need to spend $500 on the Double Mouse DLC for Deltarune. After petting some more statues, you finally reach the door with mic on it, and you're prompted to connect your microphone, because you know, mic is short for microphone. Or on consoles, the ZR button, because you know, ZR is short for the UNDERTALE, and you can finally enter the mic door and see the glory which is Mike's body. Oh, wait, is Mike invisible? Has he been with us for the entirety of Chapter 3? Has he always been there, watching? Has he seen me suck ass at the rhythm games? Have all my fears been wrong? What's real anymore? Ah, he's just here. So, the fight truly begins. And Mike has a bit of an, I'd say, expected design. Since, like I said in the last paragraph, Mike is a shortened version of microphone. But hey, the design is still cool and really distinct. He gives me the vibe of a radio show host from the 50s with a transatlantic accent. Which says something about me? What exactly? Mike's attacks use the microphone in an incredibly novel way. Playing Flappy Bird with your voice. Or dizzy air, but Mike also says a lot of weird-ass things like
I'm always on air, in the air, all around you, even within you.
And
I'm the best and most beloved, Dana's favorite. I record everything he says, and even some things he never says.
but you got no time or mind to spare to focus on all of this shit when his theme is so damn good, cause holy. After a few turns, Mike starts to use attacks where your main objective is just to pet cats. Which makes sense, since Mike is a cat. After those attacks, the ones he uses next are a fun combination of both the microphone and cat attacks. Which makes sense since he is a cowboy? If you hadn't somehow noticed it by now, good job! But there are actually somehow 3 mics, and all 3 of them are actually a reference to a fan theory on what would Mike look like. Small Mike, just the most straightforward theory of him just being a presenter. Cat Mike, about Mike being related to the device_friend sprite. And Cowboy Mike, the Woody theory, which is about the Chapter 3 secret boss possibly paralleling the plotline about being discarded and forgotten that Woody had in Toy Story 2. Yes, I am not kidding. After an all-out attack, they are actually revealed to be a normal Zapper, a normal Shadow Guy, and a Green Pippins in costume. And that none of them are actually named Mike. And that they don't know if Mike really even exists. The Green Pippins is also probably based on a certain theorist known mainly for his Five Nights at Freddy's content, Doko.
Oh my biscuits, is that sans Deltarune?
Anyways, Tena always got mad when Mike wasn't in his room, even though nobody ever saw him. So those 3 goobers just pretended to be him, and it somehow worked, which is incredibly interesting, since all of their Mike costumes look completely different. The Pippins theorizes that Mike might be just an imaginary friend Tena came up with, since he does a lot of things he says for Mike to do. Is saying Mike do X-Thing his vocals theme? After they leave, a dark hallway appears and you can go into it, where you see him. So was that Mike? Maybe? It's interesting that this thing wasn't noticed by anyone occupying the room, or Tena, even though it is like the only thing in the room, aside from the conspiracy board the Pippins pulled out of his ass. And if it is indeed Mike, why was he hiding there? in a way that no one could find him. Was he scared by someone into silence? Spamton does look solemnly every time he mentions Mike. Also, why did he reveal himself to Chris? Or maybe Mike is something entirely different. Who really is Mike? That's a good question that I want to answer today. But first, let's look at all the things that appear in the Mike room after beating the imposters. So after your return, Small Mike challenges you to 3 minigames: Jungler, Louie, and Batad. Each one is hosted by a Mike, and if you got the most amount of points in a minigame, the Mike corresponding to the minigame will become the Mike. And I really hope that it has any impact on future chapters. And also, I noticed this only while I was recording footage, but Small Mike, after you say nothing to him, says that Mike acted differently after someone else left. Is that a Spamton reference? Were they a thing? Jungler. It's a game where you throw cats into hoops by changing the gravity of the playing field with your microphone. And every time you throw a cat through one, they are worth more and more. For some reason, every time you throw one in for the first time, there's a little text that says "I was born." And really doesn't make any sense in a juggling minigame of all things. It's also mentioned by name on Noel's blog as one of the minigames that were available in Cat Petters, a fictional web browser game. In this same post, another minigame Batad is also referenced, so does that mean that the 3 Mikes somehow stole the games? She describes the name of this game as silly, which I find incredibly disrespectful, as a representative of Jungler Funeral Homes Incorporated. Yeah, I got nothing more to add on this one, Chief. Oh yeah, in the Switch 2 version there's no Jungler, and Cowboy Mike has a minigame called Airwaves, in which you block the titular airways with your pink and gold blockades. Pluie is a minigame where you have to dodge by walking with your joystick Pluie and catch pluies before the pluie wave rises and pluies all over you. It's a fine enough distraction from the normal Deltarune gameplay loop, and is probably my favorite game out of the 3, to be honest. But it definitely wasn't what I expected out of something named Pluie. But at the same time, this is the most Pluie thing that ever could have been implemented in the game. You know what I mean? No? Same. But there's allegedly something more to this game that's even more interesting than repeating Pluie 50 times in the same sentence. About there being an Easter egg when you get the score of 505, which is a number that looks like the Morse code distress signal SOS, that turns a cat into something resembling the Tale of Hell prophecy, which is shown in chapter 4, which I'll talk about later. But there's one problem with this video. This is probably not real. The only source for it I saw is a TikTok that randomly came across my feed, and I just couldn't find anyone else talking about it. But hey, something like that might just be so extremely hidden in freaking Pluie of all things that I can see nobody noticing it for a kinda long time. Like, it could be a similar case to what happened with players suddenly discovering a second Jockington room, like after 2 months after the game released. But I ran into a little bit of a problem. I suck at video games. So I did the next best thing. Looked at the ripped sprites available on Spriters Resource. Credit to Whopper the Whopper 97 who uploaded the sprites, and lo and behold, there wasn't anything. Myth busted. Oh yeah, also Pluie is basically the same in the Switch 2 version, which is kinda weird, since all the other minigames are not available in that version. But in this one, the cats have faces. And you also have 2 hands because you have 2 mouses. And also the corresponding mic is not Cat Mic but Small Mic. And Cat Mic in this version hosts a minigame called Main Performance, where you have to match a pose with your Joy-Cons to a cat that's showing you the pose. Also, did I just spend 5 minutes talking about the thing that is most likely a hoax and moved on like nothing happened? Yes! Okay. The last minigame is Batad, in which you have to catch... that perfectly shows that I'm indeed playing on a 5-year-old Nintendo Switch system from the Nintendo Switch family of consoles. Anyways, in Batat, you're in a spaceship traveling through space with only one mission: collecting colorful cats. The green ones refuel your fuel meter, and the blue ones you can hold in front of you and make them merge with other blue cats by colliding with them to create cats with progressively more aura, that, when destroyed, become even more powerful green cats. But the blue cats really only work when you're going faster, because when you are slower they drain a lot of fuel, but it's way easier to get hit and die while being fast, obviously. So it's really fun balancing your speed, catching cats and avoiding meteors. But there is one problem I have with it: I'm awful at it, and that paired with the stick drift issue makes this game not as fun as it probably is on other platforms, at least for me. And yes, it's a me problem, so I don't hold that against the game, but at least the music is incredible in every version. Wait, what was that? Did you hear that little part of the melody? This is what the community has dubbed the freedom motif. What's a motif? Something like a short recurring melody that represents a certain theme in a composition. It could be a recurring character, or something that shows a link between many characters, or something like that. I'm not really a music nerd, to be honest. But why is this little short melody so important, you may ask? It's because of the characters that have songs with this motif in it. Jevu, the chapter 1 secret boss, who talks about being the only one truly free in the kingdom. Spamden, the chapter 2 secret boss, who wants to be free from his strings and finally get revenge on everyone who ever wronged him. Gerson, the chapter 4 secret boss, who is free and wants to show the freedom of choice to other characters. And then we got Small Mike. What the hell does he have in common with all these secret bosses that also all give the player a shadow crystal, which is not something the fake mics give out, and they aren't really connected to freedom in a thematic way, cause that's also a thing all the other bosses share. Like, I can think of something for Small Mike, cause like I said, Small Mike is obsessed with finding the truth about the real Mike, and he has a love-hate relationship with pretending to be him. So you could say that his way of relating to freedom is the freedom to know the truth and to be free of just being an imposter of someone else. But I personally think this argument kinda falls flat when you remember that in the Switch 2 version, Cowboy Mike has the Airwaves theme, even though he doesn't really give a shit about the real Mike. In a way, that also can be his freedom of not giving a shit, but I think I'm maybe going a bit too far. Maybe Tricky Tony just reused this motif for no particular reason. Or maybe we'll get new info justifying the freedom motif in their themes in, like, chapter 5. Will that happen? I don't know! Oh, also one more thing about the minigame. There's apparently a secret cat that you can collect that's just extremely rare. So let me just look it up real... Okay, I've been delaying this for long enough. Let's talk about friend! Device_friend is the name in the files of this face that first appears before the teacup ride in chapter 2, like I said before. It's a place heavily associated with Spamton, cause you know, that's where you get him his new body, and then fight him in his Neo form. So a lot of people just thought it was somehow Spamton, since they have similarly colored eyes. But that really doesn't make any sense, since in the normal route, Spamton couldn't even get there without you transporting him in the disc after the face's appearance. There's also a reference to the device sprite in an unused Queen attack that would have these barriers fly at you, and there was a very very low chance the friend sprite would be on one of them. Before chapter 3 released, the sprite was also referenced on the Spawnton sweepstakes pages. On deltarune.com/chair, you can see the chair from the tale of the true reality of darkness that Ralsei tells Susie and Chris at the beginning of chapter 3. After clicking on it a random amount of times, a pair of pink and gold eyes will appear. In chapter 3's secret bosses, Aram's laugh would play, and then you would be sent back to the homepage. The face also appears on deltarune.com/rarecats. The site is a reference in itself to the Batat minigame, with all possible cats there also appearing here. And it's no different for Friend, who has the chance to jumpscare you and make you, once again, go back to the homepage of the sweepstakes. What's also interesting is the file name for his face this time. cat_009, which means that Friend is some kind of cat. In the minigame Batat itself, Friend works quite differently than the rest of the cats. He can give out from -50,000 to 300,000 points, and when touched, makes your fuel go down to 20%, and if it's already below or at that point, to 1%. This behavior is referenced on the deltarune.com/range site, which is a hidden blog post made by Noel Holiday. In that blog post, Noel talks about Batat and mentions how Friend works, but she doesn't really remember anything else about it. I forgot to mention that in the script I wrote, but she also says that no one else has seemed to found this Easter egg except one other person, and that's implied to be Chris, which is interesting, to be honest. He also appears in all the games that are accessible in chapter 3 in the ST room. For example, in some of the blank rooms, either his eyes or his smile has a chance to appear. And in the Aram/John Mantle fight, he is an enemy thanks to which you can regain your lost health. Friend in the most fleshed out form yet appears in the aforementioned Ralsei tail segment, when it does a similar jumpscare to the one that he does on the side, but for some reason their body shape is similar to Endogeny the Amalgamate from Undertale, which in Undertale is an amalgamation of dogs, which is interesting since Friend is definitely a cat. Wait, that reminds me of something. Let's go back to the mic room. Why the hell is Cat Mike really Cat Mike? Why does he look like that? Yeah, it's probably just a reference to the theory that Friend is Mike, but then why is the mic room so themed around cats? Is it because of the fact that it has minigames that come from the fictional Cat Petters game? If it is, how did the fake mics even get these minigames? And why was Friend in one of them? And also, why the Switch 2 version is so pink and gold color coded with their attacks? A popular theory that maybe explains some of those things is that Friend might be the pet from Noel's deltarune.com/egg blog post, where she talks about a special quote-unquote secret cat appearing in Cat Petters that was just an egg that couldn't be removed and didn't hatch. And after Noel started treating it like a normal pet, it left due to happiness. Maybe that pet somehow also corrupted the minigames, since it was so glitchy, which made Friend insert itself into the minigames. Also, the first time we ever see or really hear anything about Friend is in chapter 2, the one that takes place in the computer lab. So maybe because we as the player entered the cyber world, it helped Friend corrupt and spread to other dark worlds, including the main fountain, and maybe if we presume it's a computer thing, it took the Cat Petters minigames with him, and the mics just somehow came across them. But what is Friend's reason for this? And why would he assist Aram in chapter 3? Maybe Aram is just a manifestation of their goals or something. There's not enough evidence to prove anything. There's also a lot of things that possibly reference Friend in chapter 4's Dark World with the pointed tail. But what is the pointed tail? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let me explain a possible connection between the mics, Friend and the tail. So in deltarune.com/blue circles, Noel says that the cats in the game Cat Petters had a very unique art style where all the cats were made out of circles. And the tail of hell, at least the one seen in the prophecy and the files, is made of circles. So, if we assume that friend is from cat petters, actually, because of the egg thing, then maybe he also is made out of circles and that tail belongs to him. BAM! The pointed tail itself is also referenced in a room that can lead you to a room where you can get an egg, which in a way strengthens the connection between the egg and the tail. I won't really get into more friend stuff because this is still a Mike video, I promise. So if you really want to learn more about friend, I would recommend for you to read the Friend Master Doc made by @1ddoodles on Twitter, and it will be linked in the description. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's just go to who Mike is in my opinion. Okay? Stop! There is one thing that's in the mic room that I forgot to mention until now. Well, two things, but the fact that Chris doesn't like looking at Mike's conspiracy board is more of a reference to Asgore, and here's a can of worms I don't need to dive into for now. The other thing is this bomb that flashes pink and gold sparks and has cat ears. Stop! I am not talking anymore about this creature. Anyways, this little thingy is a Michael bomb, and once you use it, the scores in your mic minigame reset, and a little jingle plays. Ha, is that Metal Crusher from Undertale? A bit unexpected, but cool nonetheless. The jingle is a little bit different, but I swear I heard it somewhere in Undertale. Give me a second, I'm gonna look it up. Wait, why is it named Grandpa Sammy? If you don't know who Grandpa Sammy is, you're a heretic and should be burned. But being serious now, Grandpa Sammy is a cat character from Undertale, and like actually cat, not like Gaster cat out of the game. He was supposed to be somehow related to Sans and Papyrus Undertale, based on his name being just a name of a font, similar to the other skeletons. That's all fine and dandy. But why was it used here? Also, where was it used in Undertale? Because it differs from Metal Crusher. In Tammy's fight? When you refused to give her 10 flakes? Why? Wait, isn't Tammy one of the only mostly unchanged characters from Undertale that made it into Deltarune? And aren't they like one of the only characters that remember your deaths in Undertale? And how can they even know and sing the credits song of chapter 1? Because that's a thing she can do in chapter 4. And why does she have an egg? And also helps you with tracking all of them that you collect. And the eggs might be really important for the future of the game. Who is really Tammy? Is she just a character representation of a death? Or is she something more? Is she God? Is she benevolent? Why is she connected by a sound with the Michael bomb? Am I crazy to think this connection will amount to anything? To some of these questions the answer is probably, and to others is probably not. I'll let you pick and choose. Okay, let's just get through the people that are possibly Mike, in my opinion. The hidden corridor microphone. I think this is the most straightforward answer of them all. Mike just being the microphone that we see on the right. While it would be a little disappointing, it is still interesting because no one was able to see him, even Tena, who was possibly close with him before that time. So it would be interesting to get the reason why he showed himself to Chris in the next chapter or something. But, you know, it could be just left here. That's also possible. Paradox. It's just the theory that was proposed by Cowboy Mike. That Mike wasn't really real until the Three Stooges came around. Yep, that's it. Friend. Okay, I'm gonna talk about him some more. So Friend, he still could be Mike, I think. Again, he is only seen in trace amounts in the game. At least for now, so we don't know that much about him. But from what we know about him, He's a mysterious cat that helped Aram, or maybe is Aram, and he's probably connected to the Egg and Tail of Hell, which might be really important in later chapters. Also, when we ask Spawnton about friends, he mentions Mike. And the outfit we see him wear in chapter 2 and 3 has pink and gold glasses, which might have been a fashion choice inspired by Friend. That would mean that they were at least at one point acquaintances. Cat Mike's outfit is also clearly inspired by Friend, so that means that at least one of the Mikes, if Mike is indeed Friend, was kinda right on how the real Mike looked. Also, maybe the reason why Mike was never found in his room by Tena is either because he was somehow stuck in the minigames like we see in Batat and in the Sword Route, which means that the Mikes found the minigames inside the Mike room itself, or maybe he was at the time trying to help Aram for some reason. Maybe his motivation is similar to the Chaos King, that he's very bitter towards Lightners. Or maybe he's just acting as someone's pawn in a greater plan of some kind. I don't think we really know Friend's motives for now, so maybe we'll find out more in chapter 5. Who knows? The Forgotten Man. That's an interesting one I came up with myself. I mentioned him in the Friend segment, but in summary, the Forgotten Man is the guy who hands out eggs to Chris in all of the chapters, in the secret so-called egg rooms. He's described by the narration as a Schrödinger's character, that at the same time exists and does not exist, until you interact with him. After giving you the egg, he disappears from behind the tree. And we know that the voice that appears in the beginning of the game is a very powerful being, since they can interact with us, the player, and the fact that they allowed us, the player, to create our character before getting stopped. The player, and he deeply cares about the world, even calling it his Deltarune. He also calls the Forgotten Man an issue in the PlayStation version, if you somehow avoided all the achievements in all chapters, and for that the egg is required. There is also the fact that Tena doesn't seem to remember how Mike even looks, and just goes with anything the fake Mikes can throw at him. My theory is that the Forgotten Man is Mike, who somehow angered the deity that is another him, and because of that was banished to almost non-existence. Almost. Unfortunately for another him, Mike had at least two people who remembered him incredibly vividly, Spawnton and Tena. Even though he made everyone forget him, he just couldn't for some reason erase him completely, maybe because of the impact he had on those people. So that's why none of the Mikes even remember him ever being in his room, because he didn't leave that big of an impression on them. It's also interesting that the most hidden of the egg rooms, yet the most free one for the Forgotten Man, since he can speak in this one, is the chapter 3 one, the one where, if my theory is correct, he would have originated from. Maybe another him fears Mike in the way that he couldn't control him in the story, and is scared that he might ruin his Deltarune. Is there any other evidence for this theory? But hey, that's just a theory! Maybe my theory will have more grounds to stand on in chapter 5, since, based on what the Forgotten Man said, that's the last time we'll see him. Neo Woody theory. We will stop gambling, everyone. If the Woody theory didn't work for chapter 3, let's try chapter 5. It will definitely work this time. I'm kidding. There's actually some merit for it actually happening this time. If you don't remember when I mentioned this theory 30 years ago or so, here's a clip of me talking about it as a refresher.
The Woody theory, which is about the chapter 3 secret boss possibly paralleling the plotline about being discarded and forgotten that Woody had in Toy Story 2.
So after you ask Tena about the third board, you can make Chris come back to him, and then he mentions that he still has a cowboy show that Asgore loved. And in the unused content, there's a quiz question on the third board that was scrapped for pacing, where Tena asks about the cowboy show and when does it air. And all the answers to the second question are that it was cancelled. So what does that have to do with Mike? Well, we know that Tena doesn't have the cowboy show on anymore, but what if there was another TV that still had it? The one that's precisely located in the Flower King, Asgore's new home. Like Tena says, he was a big fan of the show and he probably is nostalgic for it because he watched it with his children, as Tena says. Maybe the reason why Mike hasn't been in his room for such a long time is the fact that he was actually cancelled and then disappeared from the TV world completely. And maybe Asgore, who still hasn't gotten over the divorce even though it happened probably years ago, has saved episode of the cowboy show that he rewatches to be nostalgic about the life before that divorce. And kablam! Mike's Lightful form is actually the cowboy show episode. That's why he'll be the secret boss of chapter 5. Let's go! So, to conclude, Mike is an interesting character, to say the least, that has ties to even more interesting characters that will definitely make an impact on the future of the game. Will we ever hear about Mike again in the future? I mean, there is that cutscene that Toby Fox posted with the 3 fake mics, so I guess we'll see them again, so that's cool. But will we get the answer to my question? Maybe, probably not. If we do ever get a conclusion to the Mike thing, it's probably gonna be in chapter 5, because 3, 4 and 5 were at first made to release together. But hey, even if we got nothing, it is fun to theorize. Also, I lied like 5 minutes ago and I'm gonna answer one of the questions I asked, and Temi is the roaring knife. Like, everything makes sense. If he is, you can fight me on this hill and I'll just push you down.